Our hero dreams of a peaceful and fulfilling life, but fate has other plans and cuts his journey short before he can make it happen. Luckily, he gets a second chance. He's reincarnated as the son of a rich family, just like he always wanted. But there's a twist. He quickly realizes he's now living in the kingdom he once fought against, and the body he's in belongs to a notorious troublemaker who is set to die in just 2 years. Can he change his fate and create the life he's always dreamed of? That's what today's story is all about. Our story kicks off with a crew of heroes trying to stop the world from ending, but they ultimately bomb. Ivan feels bad and admits that he messed up, saying Chris is really the true hero here. Just then, a girl chimes in, sadly reminding everyone they've done everything they could. Ivan mentions that if Chris, the brilliant one, had picked up a sword sooner, he could have been a 10-star hero and might have prevented the apocalypse. Chris is called the Great Extra because he has this crazy talent for quickly picking up skills, no matter what. His journey starts at 20. He's a young guy with big dreams who runs away from his messed up family and lives in the slums. Around the same time, humanity gets attacked by this magic empire ruled by the Blood Demon King. They call for heroes to stand up against the invasion, and Chris jumps at the chance, hoping for some riches. Sadly, things don't go well, and they lose to the Blood Demon King. Chris and Ivan were having a deep moment when Ivan started wishing to rewind time and make Chris the hero from the get-go. But Chris quickly shut that down. He had zero interest in reliving such a rough life, and let's be real, time travel is a total myth. As everything around them fell apart, they shared one last look. In that instant, Chris came to terms with the fact that this was the end. As he started to fade away, he scoffed at the thought of a second chance and casually wished he'd been born rich, if that kind of thing was real. Then, out of nowhere, it happened. Chris woke up as a young noble from the Dark Mage bloodline in the Magic Empire, part of one of its 12 ruling families. He realized he had been thrown back 15 years in time and only had 5 years to get ready for the Demon King's invasion. Just when he thought he'd seen it all, he found himself shocked to see demons in sun hats casually taking care of a garden. But what really got to him was that he recognized the identity of the guy whose life he was now living. His name, Christian van Baron Kazar. Chris remembered hearing that name before. It clicked. Van meant he was part of a lesser demonic bloodline. The Kazar family, a rich branch of the Baron household, was well known in the notorious Dark Maga family. The Kazar family has 2 heirs. The older son, Christian, was such a troublemaker that he brought shame to his family until they finally lost hope and ended his life. Now in the present, Chris is totally freaked out by the awful fate of the guy he's stuck being. He punches the wall, cursing the irony he always dreamed of being a rich dude's kid, but definitely not this rich dude's kid. Now he's left wondering why he got a second chance, why he's here in this crazy situation, and most importantly, how he ended up in the body of a dead man walking. Chris is trying to keep his cool and figure out how to get out of this mess. It's been 3 days since he woke up in this dude noble's body, and if his past self got executed for being a jerk, maybe acting decent could change his luck. Now that he's the son of a wealthy guy, he thinks he might finally live the life he's always wanted. But then reality hits him hard. There's a big problem: Ragnarok. Chris remembers that the Demon King's whole plan to start a war is to kick off Ragnarok by offering up human sacrifices. Because Chris couldn't figure this out in his previous life, both the forces of light and the Magic Empire ended up getting wiped out. Chris knows he has to stop the chaos if he wants to survive. The Demon King is a massive threat, but what's really scary is all the demons in the Magic Empire who follow him. If Chris wants to come out on top, he has to outsmart the Demon King and claim that title for himself. Right now, he has 5 years until the invasion starts, and he's wondering if he should take a risk. After all, doing nothing means certain death. Plus, if he pulls this off, they'll go from having a nice house to ruling the whole empire. Now, when Chris steps into his dad's office, he's hit with a wave of anger. Count Kazar, absolutely furious, reminds him he was supposed to reflect on his screw-ups, not just stroll in after messing things up again. The Count makes it clear that one more dumb move could cost Chris his life. Under all that pressure, Chris stays cool and says he's here to apologize for his past mistakes. But the truth is, he wants to clean up his reputation and kick off his plan. Caught off guard, Count Kazar listens as Chris confidently repeats his apology, promising he won't make the same mistakes again. Count Kazar isn't buying it. He thinks Chris's sudden change seems pretty sketchy, especially given all the damage he's caused. Chris, feeling a bit lost about what his dad is really upset about, reminds him that he brought up memory loss a few days ago. As he thinks back, he really starts to regret what he did. Count Kazar still isn't convinced and remembers hearing similar promises in the past. Chris knows that just talking isn't going to change anything, so he offers to spend a month in the Punishment Ward to prove he means it. The Punishment Ward is this infamous prison where high-ranking demons end up for really unforgivable stuff. It's a dark hole where there's no light and you're stripped of everything that makes you feel human. Even the toughest folks can crack in just a few days, but Chris thinks it's the perfect way to disappear from everyone's radar. Count Kazar raises an eyebrow, skeptical about Chris' confidence. He warns him that a guy like him won't last a single day in such a brutal place. Chris gets that Ward is cruel, but he's convinced that telling it out is necessary to show he's serious about changing his ways. Kazar scoffs, reminding Chris how many times he's made promises like this before and flopped each time, but he gives him one last shot to see if he can really turn things around. Still, he lays it out clearly. If Chris doesn't make serious progress by the end of the month, he's out of the family for good. Chris knows how heavy that threat is. Without his family's backing, there are plenty of folks who would jump at the chance to take him out. But he stands his ground, voice steady and sure. He agrees to his dad's terms, but adds one condition. If he proves he's changed, he wants to ask Count for something important. Kazar, feeling irritated by Chris' overconfidence, points out how sure Chris seems that he'll come out of this fine. Still annoyed, he decides to agree to Chris' request, if Chris actually keeps his word. As he walks out of the office, Kazar can't shake the feeling that Chris is way over his head. Later on, Chris is in his room with this gem-like object in his hand when Cox, the family servant, pops in to let him know the punishment ward is all set for him. Chris puts the gem down on the table and follows Cox out. While they stroll through the halls, Chris can't help but catch bits of the servants' gossip. They're stunned that the family's disgrace is voluntarily heading to the punishment ward. They're all wondering what scheme he's come up with this time. Their chat turns to a recent scene where Chris insulted the young lady from the infamous Manga family, leading Count Kazar to step in and apologize personally, even though there's been a long-standing feud. That totally wrecked Chris' reputation and made him look bad. One servant sighs, wondering when Chris will finally grow up, while another bluntly says it's never gonna happen. They keep chatting about how long he'll actually last in the punishment ward, with one betting 2 days at most while the other thinks he won't even see a full day. Chris and Cox keep walking until they hit the entrance of the punishment ward, where 2 big guards are hanging out. Chris takes a quick look at one, thinking it's pretty typical for the Magic Empire to use Death Knights as guards. He brushes it off, not really caring as long as they're not coming in with him, and keeps going. Right before he steps in, he hears a voice call out, "Brother." Chris turns around to see his younger brother, Turn, the perfect student. He's taken aback when Turn suddenly pulls out a sword. A wave of fear rushes through him, but he quickly collects himself and asks what Turn wants. With a shout, Turn accuses him of always being a disgrace to the family. He doesn't know what Chris is planning this time, but he warns that if Chris brings shame upon them again, he'll kill him. At that moment, Chris figures it all out. Turn is the one who's really going to end him. He remembers when he first met Turn during the invasion. Back then, Turn was already a well-known demon with some serious curse magic skills. Chris looks at Turn and notices how innocent he seems for his age. This kid must have put in some serious training, but to Chris, who made it through the chaos of the ruined world, he's still just a kid. With a steady voice, Chris tells Turn to put his sword down, tapping into that unshakable confidence he built during those tough times. Turn hesitates, clearly thrown off. Chris just says, "I got the message," and tells him to stay out of it before walking away. Turn tries to say something else, but Chris doesn't pay any attention and heads into the punishment ward. Left fuming over their exchange, Turn yells out in frustration. Once inside, Chris checks his senses. As expected, he can't hear or see anything, but he feels a slight sensation in his fingertips. His dad must have given him just enough touch to manage the supplies he brought. Without it, he'd be in trouble. Most people would lose it in a place like this, but Chris is made of tougher stuff. He's been through way worse as a treasure hunter. Rather than seeing this sensory deprivation as a curse, he views it as an opportunity to dive deeper into his thoughts, free from any distractions. Now he can start fixing up the messed up body he's inherited. It's going to be tough, but with the medical skills he picked up from a saint, some body mod techniques from the circus, and the mana stones he has, he feels pretty confident he can make it work. Chris grabs a mana stone, realizing he never thought he actually owned one, considering how ridiculously expensive they are. But then again, it makes sense that a noble family would spoil even a disgrace like the last owner of this body. He feels a bit of regret remembering how he and Avon used to struggle just to get their hands on a single stone like this. Determined, he gets to work, starting with purifying his body using a white mana stone. It's a boring but important step. He's got to clear out all the gunk with pure mana, and one little mistake could ruin everything. Soon enough, a small smile crept onto Chris's face. He finishes the purification surprisingly easily. In Count Kazar's office, he's grilling Cox about Chris. Cox tells him that Chris chose to go into the punishment ward on his own. A feeling of unease hits Count as he thinks maybe Chris has reached a point where he can't even ask for help making him feel bad about letting him go in the first place. Count remembers when Chris was just a promising kid, but then everything started falling apart. He wonders if Chris' pride and talent ended up being his downfall. But he doesn't dwell on it for long, convincing himself it might be better if Chris ends up crippled or even dead instead of living the way he has been. Then he suddenly remembers that determined look on Chris's face, and it stirs something in him. Yet, with all the times he's been tricked before, he figures this time is probably no different. He asks Cox if anything weird happened when Chris went into the punishment ward. When Cox hesitates, Count pushes him to be completely honest and spill everything. Cox mentions that Chris brought in a bunch of mana stones, including a hallucination stone that triggers delusions. Considering the sketchy side effects, Cox suggests they should open the punishment ward to check on Chris. Count's face darkens with anger as he insists that even if Chris is on his last legs, that door is staying shut. A month later, Count finds himself standing in front of the punishment ward. He imagines what kind of shape Chris might be in. If he's still alive, he must be in pretty rough condition. What he sees totally blows him away. Chris steps out looking like $1,000,000, but there is not a hint of struggle showing at all. He locks eyes with Count and asks why he looks so shocked, reminding him that he promised to change, and hey, he actually did. Count is clearly rattled as he recognizes that familiar spark in Chris' eyes from when they were kids. Once he gathers himself, he just says it's obvious Chris made it through. Chris laughs and asks if that's a compliment. Count shoots back, telling him not to be so cocky. Chris feels a bit annoyed but can't help feeling good about everything he accomplished in just a month. He's managed to whip his body into shape for sword fighting, and with the white mana stone, he feels full of energy. The hallucination stone ended up being a smart move too. Even though Cox gives him a hard time for using what's basically a secret drug, it really helps him speed up his transformation. He had managed to create 2 cores, making him a first-level light mage. Plus, he cleverly hid the light core inside a dark one to keep it under wraps. If anyone found out, it would be a total disaster. Chris tells his dad that since he's kept his promise, he has a favorite ask. When Count wants to know what it is, Chris asks if he can use the Black Forest Knights training grounds. Count's face shows that he's not too happy about it, saying that place isn't for someone like him. It's one of the 3 main spots for the Dark Mage family, and only top-notch knights get to train and show off their skills there. Chris makes it clear he just wants access to the grounds, thinking that watching the Black Forest Knights in action would really inspire him. After considering it for a bit, Count agrees but warns him not to show any weakness in front of the knights. As Khazar is about to leave, Chris stops in with another request. Fast forward, and we're at the Black Forest Knights training grounds. 3 knights are hanging around, curious about a certain person who turns out to be Chris, gearing up for his training session. Chris notices the looks the young knights are giving him, but he knows being the Count's son won't cut it for earning their respect. In this magic empire, it's all about strength, not status. Chris isn't just hanging out at the Black Forest Knights headquarters to hit up the training grounds. He's got his eye on the library too, his second request to his dad. But there's a catch. His dad wants him to get a recommendation letter from Vice Commander Bellin before he even thinks about giving Chris a key. The library is where the Khazar family keeps their black magic books, and getting in is super important to Chris. When he tries to argue that he should be allowed in as a family member, his dad brings up the time when Chris got caught trying to swipe valuable books to sell on the black market. That's when it really hits him that the guy who used to own this body was quite the troublemaker. But instead of being offended, Chris has a plan to win over Vice Commander Bellin and get that key fast. Just then, his brother Turn shows up with a crew of guys and tells Chris this place isn't meant for pests like him. Chris is annoyed to deal with Turn again and almost brushes him off, but then he stops, grinning as a clever idea pops into his head. Turn's timing couldn't be better. Turn gives Chris a sharp warning to get lost, just barely considering him lucky after dodging the ward punishment. Chris stays calm and asks if Turn's ready to back up his tough talk and surprises him by saying their dad is cool with it. Out of nowhere, someone steps in and acknowledges the Count's decision. It's Bellin, the Vice Commander. Chris instantly feels her powerful magic pressure, at least 4th tier, but he's used to dealing with that kind of intensity. He gives her a respectful bow. Bellin is taken aback when she realizes Chris is handling her pressure without flinching. He tells her that if she thinks that's how he rolls, he'll show her he's deserving of the training grounds. Bellin asks how he plans to do that, and Chris points to Turn and his crew, suggesting a duel with one of them. Bellin assumes he's joking, but Chris insists he's 100% serious. He adds one condition. It's a fistfight only and no magic is allowed. Bellin grows uneasy, worried about him getting hurt since he's the Count's son. She asks if he really thinks he has a chance just because it's a fair fight. Chris replies that the only way to find out is to give it a shot and points at Turn, saying he'd make a good opponent. Turn gets annoyed, thinking Chris is just messing with him. Bellin jumps in, telling Chris to pick someone else since Turn is already at level 2. Chris is taken aback, realizing that getting to that level isn't easy, especially for anyone over 30. But he's not phased. After all, he's not just any loser. Chris tells Bellin that if he wants to prove himself, he needs to take on someone tougher, which makes Turn the perfect choice. With a grin, he asks Turn if he's scared. That just fuels Turn's anger, and he agrees to the duel. Everyone's watching, hoping Turn will win and beat that loser. Chris sarcastically asks Bellin how they'll determine the winner. Fed up with his arrogance, Bellin declares that the winner will be whoever renders their opponent completely immobile, secretly hoping Turn will break his leg. Chris starts provoking Turn, saying that if those are the rules, he'll beat him until he can't move. Turn is livid and vows to silence him for good. Suddenly, Chris lunges and delivers a solid punch straight to Turn's face. Turn is caught off guard by what just happened, while Chris laughs and says the fight has already begun. Turn is getting really mad and charges at Chris, but Chris easily sidesteps him. He can't help but think that it feels a bit unfair. As a demon, he's not even at the first level yet. In a magic duel, he wouldn't stand a chance at all. But in a fistfight, he has the advantage thanks to all of his combat experience from countless fights and the level of light energy he hit in the punishment ward, which is like being at the 3rd tier for them. The crowd is totally blown away by what they're seeing. Nobody thought Chris would get the upper hand on Turn this easily. Chris can't help but keep teasing Turn, asking if he's about to shed some tears. Furious, Turn wants to know what kind of trick Chris is using. Chris, feeling pretty good about Turn's meltdown, just shrugs and says he has no clue what Turn's on about and maybe the real problem is just how weak he is. Then he goes on to roast him even harder. Turn finally snaps and begins channeling his magic. He lunges at Chris, screaming that he'll kill him. But surprisingly, Chris dodges without breaking a sweat. Turn launches another faster attack, but it still doesn't land. Not only that, but Chris even blocks it with his bare hand. Turn is stunned when he realizes Chris is using magical power. Before he can process what's happening, Chris slams a powerful punch into him, sending him flying. Turn crashes to the ground, unconscious from the blow. Everyone around is totally stunned, trying to wrap their heads around what just happened. One person wonders if Turn is underestimating his opponent, while another thinks maybe he's just holding back his magic to keep from hurting Chris. But Bella knows Chris won fair and square, and she's honestly shocked. Chris looks at her and asks if that's enough to prove himself. When she says it is, he says thanks. Chris is feeling a quiet joy. He finally got her attention, and now he can dive into swordsmanship and magic. Time flies, and Chris finally taps into the first level of magic. He realizes it's taking him a while since he's not quite used to handling mana, and there are a bunch of old issues he still needs to sort out. He figures that once he levels up a bit more, he'll be able to juggle both light energy and mana at the same time. Out of the blue, a weird creature pops up. It turns out that it's Chris's personal maid. He's caught off guard and jokingly thinks that, of course, someone like Christian would summon a banshee as a maid. No regular person could handle his craziness. Chris decides to deal with it later and asks the banshee to grab him some juice before he gets back to training. She asks if human blood juice would be okay, and Chris quickly shoots back, saying that he just wants regular strawberry juice. She inches closer, insisting that blood juice would taste way better. Chris feels uneasy and repeats firmly that he just wants strawberry juice, nothing else. Stepping out of his room, Chris runs into the servant Cox, who questions why he's up so early to train and suggests he might be pushing it a bit too hard. Cox adds that he's proud of Chris for working so much, saying that even when others doubt him, he always stands by him. Chris, not in the mood, replies sharply that he never asked for anyone's trust and asks who Cox thinks he is to offer it. Cox looks taken aback. He quickly apologizes, admitting he can be pretty arrogant and oversteps sometimes before wishing Chris a good session. As Chris watches him head off, he feels a bit uneasy. There's something off about Cox. There's a vibe of suspicion, and his presence just feels a bit weird. When Chris finally gets to the training grounds, he notices that the looks he's getting have changed from before. Maybe now he can actually start talking to them a bit since they seem a little friendlier. One of the demon trainees walks up to Vice Commander Bellin and tells her that young Master Christian has decided to train today too. Bellin doesn't say anything back. She's lost in thought about what Christian might be up to, especially after that duel he had with his brother Turn. The way he zeroed in on weak spots, used mana even against Turn's awesome moves, and actually won. It all makes it clear he knows how to read the battlefield like a pro. If she's right, Christian might be even more skilled than Lord Ashtabaran, the heir of the main family. But she quickly shakes the thought off, convincing herself that Christian is just a messed up scoundrel with his mana ruined by his wild lifestyle, and there's no way he can catch up. Just then, she hears a racket outside, steps out of her tent, and asks what's going on. she finds all the trainees gathered around. One of them tells her there's a simple duel happening between young Master Christian and another trainee. She's surprised to hear that it's canon, a first-star demon, which means Christian has reached that same level too. Chris is itching to test the skills of the so-called Great Black Swamp Knights, but he thinks they're nowhere near as tough as their reputation suggests. He throws out a challenge, asking if anyone's got the guts to fight him. To poke the bear even more, he calls them a bunch of scared knights who are too chicken to face real combat. One trainee can't take it anymore and steps up, promising to shut Chris down. Chris just laughs and tells him to bring it on. Everything goes just as he planned, and they all fall for it without even realizing it. Now they're ready to spill the knight's secret techniques, and he's got no choice but to play along and snag them this way. Chris hones in on the sword grip and the smooth footwork, and he spots it right away. Mud swordsmanship, a technique he's heard about before and feels ready to copy. Just like that, he takes down another knight, leaving everyone in shock. They can't believe the guy they once thought was weak has come back so strong, especially with rumors flying around that he's got a broken dark core. So how does he even hit the first star? Chris takes a moment to set the tone, expressing his disappointment. He had really high hopes for the knights. He then looks over at Belen and tells her she's also to blame for their lackluster skills and standards. The trainees are left speechless, shocked by his boldness in calling out the vice commander like that, almost as if he's digging his own grave. Belen responds, saying she understands he is excited over his unexpected victory, but believes he is letting it go to his head. Chris replies that she is welcome to show him the true skill she claims the Black Swamp Knights possess. His words enrage Belen. She grabs a knight's sword and swings it at Chris with force. Unable to react in time, he narrowly avoids the strike, and the blade leaves a deep mark on the ground. She smirks, telling him it would take less than a second to bring down someone as arrogant as him. Our boy is asking her why she's using all her power, pointing out that dark magic over 1 star is against the rules and bringing up the wooden sword. On hearing about 1 star, she switches her sword with a wooden one and tells him that she will break both of his legs with just half of that. Chris is also nervous about betting his legs and asks what the vice commander will bet. She rushes at him to attack, determined that he won't be walking out of here today. But he stands his ground and blocks her attack. They both dive into a crazy sword fight, swinging their blades at each other. The crowd can't believe he's holding his own against the vice commander and starts to wonder if it's because she isn't using her big swords. Belen is burning because our boy is weak and can't handle her, but her hits aren't connecting. She wonders if this was the same deal when she fought Turn, and if it's happening again now. Chris asks if things aren't going her way, but Belen just snaps at him to shut up before charging at him. This time, she's throwing some serious punches. She nails our boy with a heavy attack, but he somehow manages to dodge it and thinks this is his shot. He sees an opening and rushes in, landing a headbutt right on her face. Out of nowhere, Belen's nose starts gushing blood. Meanwhile, our boy is in shock that his plan actually worked. This whole situation reminds Belen of Merlin, the magic swordsman. Since black magic is a no-go, she realizes he can't really defend himself, he's weak on the defense. Things might have been impossible if Merlin were some sort of demon good with swords. She laughs in her craziness, admitting that she totally underestimated Chris. Now she's decided to actually focus. Our boy asks if the match feels over, reminding her that he scratched her with his nails earlier. He points out that if there had been poison on them, she knows how that would have ended. She admits defeat and asks what he wants, hoping he'll give her another chance to fight. Chris states that she has to grant him one more request before any match, and she agrees. He then approaches her and asks if she can kneel before him. She pushes back, saying her loyalty is to the Baron family, but he suggests that maybe making her his concubine would solve things. Belen is completely shocked, questioning how that makes sense since all 5 recognized concubines who can succeed are from the main family's direct line. Chris is trying to convince her by saying that even someone from a side can end up as a concubine. He also agrees to her duel challenge and suggests they do it a month from now because he wants to get stronger. She feels pretty sure there's no way he can win against her, but he responds that sometimes an egg can break a rock, leaving her speechless. He then walks off, determined to show her where her loyalty should really be. Later in the palace, he gives a recommendation letter to Vice Commander Merlin. He points out that Belen's basic skills as a demon are par, so she should focus on training. As the Count reads the letter, it's clear that Merlin is impressed that Chris has already taken down opponents with solid foundations, even if they were lower ranked. Plus, Merlin seems to enjoy sparring with Chris after a long break. The Count is also really impressed with Chris. When Chris asks what he's looking at, the Count brushes him off and hands him the promised library key. As Chris leaves with the key, he feels super happy about getting it and feels like he has impacted Merlin. Merlin is a demon from the main branch of the Merlinsk magic clan. During the Age of Destruction, he rises to become a powerful 6-star demon and gets really involved in things. For Chris to take charge of the Dark Magic clan, he must bring Merlin over to his side. He's not fully on board yet, but Chris thinks a month should do the tricks since Merlin sees himself as a genius. He thinks back to his dad, Count, and remembers his expressions from earlier, wondering if that was what fatherly affection looks like. Even demons can have that family bond, and maybe he's a better person than his dad in his last life. He's set on not letting his father count. As he walks into the library, he checks out the different kinds of magic books on the shelves, totally forbidden stuff in the light faction. Just as he pulls a book off the shelf, Banshee pops out from the other side, surprising him completely. He asks her what she's doing there. Banshee explains that she's actually the librarian and he can't believe it. Then she jokes about him wanting her to be his personal maid. Chris, annoyed, and tells her to just be quiet. She starts teasing him, making him more frustrated as he tries to brush her off. As he grabs a book, Banshee tells him he picked a 4-star black magic book called The Seal of Binding. She mentions he won't really get right now, but our boy insists he's a genius, so he'll be fine. Hearing this, Banshee tries to flatter him, but he just brushes her off, saying she's awkward. She then asks if he chose that book for a specific reason, and he replies it's because he needs to catch a rat. While running with many people at the training ground, he thinks the first rat candidate is Turn, who can't stand him for being a good-for-nothing. The second is Cox, who has free access to the disciplinary ward. Demons care more about power than status, so Cox's attempts to win over our boy seem a bit off. He wonders if there's something else going on, but it's pretty obvious that Cox wants to mess up Chris enough to stash the illusion stone in the ward. He figures if he plays the part of the good-for-nothing, the one who gets all excited about it will be the guilty party. As he wraps up his run, he's completely wiped out. He can't help but wonder how these other guys keep pushing through. Eventually, he just walks off and calls it quits. This catches people's attention, and they start to question what's going on with him. Meanwhile, while he's snacking on some food, his dad starts yelling about the mess he made, complaining that the staff couldn't even serve him decent meals. He screams at them to fix it. Count is pretty ticked off too, feeling like an idiot for thinking the kid had finally gotten it together. Then he storms out, clearly frustrated. Chris feels a bit guilty for some reason, but he figures it's probably for the best for the Kazar family. He's been working hard to spread the word that he's back to being a slug. He messed with the cleaning staff and threw cash around like it was nothing. When Banshee brought him a drink, he complained about her not letting him have alcohol. Then he tossed it aside when he found out it was non-alcoholic. She argued that he was still a minor, so regular booze was off limits. Banshee questioned if he was going to waste his life again, but still said she'd stick by him no matter what. Chris mentioned he would catch a rat and show off some cool magic. Banshee was impressed that he mastered the Seal of Binding and proudly said he modified it to work despite being low-ranked. He wasn't just messing around, he also been picking up other spells during his free time. When she flattered him by calling him a genius, Turn walked in. Chris quickly pretended to be drunk, all confused about why Turn was there. Turn is mad and switches out, saying he thought our boy had changed his mind. Chris is not sure if Turn is angry and thinks this dude is out of the game. Our boy mentions a rat in Turn's place, leaving Turn confused about what he means. Someone's trying to mess things up for our boy again, so he's gearing up to go along with the prank. He then catches a whiff of the alcohol and realizes it's all faked too. He asks who the rat is, and our boy says it's tough to figure anyone out just yet, but he mentions that the bait will be taken soon. A servant approaches him and asks what's up, and Chris tells him that this isn't the wine he wants, ordering him to have the butler bring the right one. The servant replies that Cox is busy with something urgent at the moment, so our boy says he'll go find him himself. He heads over to Cox, bringing the drink with him. Cox is curious about why he's there. Our boy dumps the entire drink on his head out of nowhere, telling the butler that the wine was all wrong and asking if he was ignoring him. Cox says he definitely isn't and promises to get the right one immediately. Chris tells him to just bring it himself. Cox tries to say that he's got some stuff to take care of, but Chris pushes back, asking how he will get any work done looking like that, especially since he needs to change his clothes anyway. He tells Cox to go sort it out and come back. Cox nods and heads out. After all this humiliation, the kid realizes he's been pretty patient. Then he glances at the papers scattered on the ground. He picks them up and takes a look. He figures that if the butler is the traitor, he's probably been messing with the administration too. But that's still not enough. Chris needs some solid proof. As Cox brings over the wine, our boy asks if he's upset with him. Cox just laughs it off, wondering how he could feel that way. Then our boy starts praising him, saying he likes him the most. But Cox tells him there's something he needs to share. He mentions that Chris's friends are secretly meet at their usual spot. Cox hopes the young master stays away from them if he can. Still, Our boy is set on meeting them. He figures this is all turning out easier than he expected. As our boy hooks up with his old friends, they've caught wind of the stories about him changing lately. They think he's just a jerk for using such a young girl to serve drinks, like she's just some object. They urge him to have a drink, but when he checks it out, they start to wonder what he's up to. He smashes the drink over their heads, and they freak out at what happened. But then, seeing the mess he made with the sacred booze, he starts to rethink his actions. Next, he uses magic on that young girl, putting her out for a bit. He then tells them not to be surprised by something like this and grabs the head of one of the folks, smashing their heads on the table continuously, making them unconscious too. He expresses that if they do not know the reason even after getting hit, then they can die here. As those folks wake up completely tied up in ropes, they beg for mercy. They reveal that they were just ordered to drug our boy, kill that girl, and frame our boy. However, our boy asks who had given them the orders. As they hesitate to reveal, our boy threatens them, cutting out some of their parts. They quickly reveal that Cox gave them the order and beg to be spared. They tell him that they will do anything. Our boy asks if they can do anything, and they promise they can. He believes them, so he casts some magic on them by telling them to listen and follow his orders. They pass out again and flop onto the ground. Meanwhile, Cox rushes over to the Count and says something terrible has happened. When pressed, he spills that the young master has committed murder. He got wasted last night, killed his servant, and dumped the body in the river. Cox points out they cannot ignore this and asks what they should do next. The Count tells him to bring Chris to the demon court because he will decide his fate immediately. As our boy stands in court before the Count, he boldly declares that he is innocent. The Count asks if he is lying since there is a witness, but our boy insists this is false and claims it is just a misunderstanding. He brings up the servant and asks if she is the one who died, which catches everyone off guard when they see her. The girl steps forward and says that the master took her home when she was out and even gave her cash for rent. She points out that the real troublemakers are those two over there who slipped drugs into the young master's drink. Confused, the Count turns to our boy and asks what is happening. After listening for a bit, our boy decides to cut to the chase. He uses his magic skills on the others, and they confess that they made up the whole thing because Cox paid them to set up the young master. Cox jumps in, shouting that this is all nonsense and telling the Count it is totally unfair. He claims our boy is taking things too far and insists it is a terrible prank. Our boy, affected by this situation, wants to ask if he can question Cox for Count. At first, Count looks a bit puzzled, but eventually gives him the go-ahead. He clarified that if our boy did or said anything out of line, he would take back that permission immediately. Our kid takes his oath in the name of the mighty ruler of magic and his majesty. Acting as the representative of the Count, he asks the defendant if he promises to tell the truth when answering his questions. Cox agrees that he will be honest. With that, our kid uses the seal of restraint on Cox, and he looks terrified. The crowd watching could not believe a kid was using a 4-star magic spell like the seal of restraint, but it turns out it is just a modified version that anyone at a low level can use. There is just a catch. To activate it, you need an oath. Cox yells at our kid, wondering what he is doing to him. The kid reminds him that he swore to tell the truth and asks why he tried to set him up by bribing those guys. Then the seal of restraint kicks in on Cox, and he starts to spill the beans. He admits that someone made him do it, saying he had to throw the young master under the bus because he had some skeletons in his closet and was threatened. Our boy claims his dirty laundry is long-term embezzlement, and he pushes Cox hard to make him spill the beans on who is behind it all. Finally, Cox cracks and reveals that it is Lord Ashed. Everyone watching is shocked to hear it is Lord Ashed, the second son of that dark mage family. Cox freaks out and realizes he is in serious trouble. He thinks he has to make a run for it. In no time, our boy grabs a sword and slashes Cox's head instantly. Count also becomes nervous seeing this. Just as Cox lies lifeless on the floor, our boy announces that on behalf of the Count, he has punished the criminal. The Count is curious about why our boy made that choice. Our boy explains that the main family would have tried to cover things up if Cox had lived. He could not give them a pass. This way, everyone would remember that Lord Ash tried to frame him. Count then opens a portal and tells our boy to come with him. Inside, our boy asks what this place is, and Count explains it is a secret training ground since the courtroom is too crowded with watching eyes. Our boy wonders if Count plans to cause trouble for Ash's claim to the hair. Count says supporting the hair is about the family's power, but he thinks our boy's decision was too rushed. He thinks they should back the first princess instead since the first lord is a real psycho, but our boy insists he wants to be a hair. Count is not buying it and thinks it is ridiculous. Still, our boy tries to convince him that even capable branch families deserve a shot at inheritance rights. Count insists it is how things are, but our boy asks why Ash tried to frame him. Count admits that our boy was more talented than Ash when they were younger, but now our boy has fallen behind. He insists he will catch up soon and asks the Count to give him a good word to join the Holy Black ceremony with the main family in 2 months. Count points out that only those with 2-star mana can join in, and since Chris is only at 1-star mana, it is a tough sell. But our boy argues that he will hit the 2-star level in time and pleads with his dad to help him. In the courtroom, folks are starting to chat about how the young master seems different now, especially with all that training he has been doing with the top knights. They are curious to see how long he can keep it up. Our boy is practicing his sword skills with this mix of mud swordsmanship and black side techniques. His dad is scratching his head and wondering how he picked it up so fast since all he has taught him is the black scythe stuff. You must be taking it step by step, right? But our boy is slicing through these giant mushrooms like it is no big deal. His dad is curious if he is using mud swordsmanship, since those mushroom limbs are tough enough to make that seem unlikely. Our boy combined the black scythe swordsmanship with the mud swordsmanship technique, and his dad was seriously impressed. He cannot believe how powerful this move is. Mixing these two techniques helps him counter curse magic. Right now, he is just using the energy from the black scythe sword. Our boy, a bit unsure if it is working, comments on how easy it feels, and his dad is even more stunned by that. 15 days later, Chris is sprawled out on the dry, empty ground, worn out from all the running. He thinks that his stamina fuels his mana, so he cannot slack off. Belen pipes up and asks if he is feeling exhausted. She reminds him that the duel is just around the corner and that she has been looking forward to it. Chris, meanwhile, is pushing himself hard to meet her expectations. Pleasantly teasing him about his progress, Belen asks if he is still only at 1-star mana and tells him he does not need to feel like he is above her. But Chris insists that he is sure he will learn a lot from the duel, making it a win-win for him. Belen heads off with a smile, saying he still knows how to talk and encouraging him to put up a good fight to entertain her. Our boy is surprised that Merlin's already at a 4-star high ranking. Within that 1 mana star, there are high, middle, and low ranks, which is a big leap from his current 1-star high rank. He sees himself as this young master, also known as a wallet warrior. He heads over to the Banshee, asking if she has packed his bag for their outing. She is all excited because she made it look nice, saying it is a big deal since it is her first outing with the young master. He just brushes her off, saying he never actually said he was going with her. She insists that serving him is what makes her happy. A little while ago, he had asked his dad to turn a servant into a human, but his dad told him he could not because he had not made a deal with the Banshee yet. Our boy suddenly remembers that to break the contract, he needs to share a deep kiss with the Banshee, and he is scratching his head over it. He tells her they are heading out to a busy spot where she will release her dark energy and people might get hurt. She cutely insists that she has been cooped up in the mansion for decades. He starts to warm up to the idea and says she can come, but she has to stay hidden from everyone. She gets all flattered and appreciates her young master, but he quickly tells her to hurry up and follow him. She wants to know where they are headed, and our boy says there is a spot where they can really cash in. The Banshee reminds him they have already got plenty of money, but he insists it is not just about the cash. There is something he used to do all the time. As he opens the carriage to hop in, he spots Tern already sitting there and asks why he is around. Tern tells our boy that he's there to keep an eye on him in case Chris does something wild. But our boy reassures him that there's no need to stress since he's just going to gamble. I mean, demons and gambling go hand in hand, plus it's totally legal. Even the Demon King was cool with it back in the day. Tern insists he wants to tag along, and when our boy asks if he's worried about him, Tern claims he doesn't worry about him at all. He's just worried he'll embarrass the family again. So off they go for some gambling. Tern isn't sure if our boy knows the rules of the game, but our boy just shrugs it off, calling a card game and saying he's glad his brother is blissfully clueless. When they get to the gambling spot, they're blown away by the atmosphere. Our boy hands Tern a mask to keep his identity under wraps and tells Banshee to keep herself hidden too. Then he leans in close to her and whispers something, and she nods and heads off. Tern is left scratching his head about what just went down. As they step inside, people start noticing them, wondering if they're easy pickings. Tern can't shake the feeling that he looks like a sitting duck walking into this high-stakes place. Our boy throws out a betting idea. If Tern loses, he has to call them respected King, Emperor, Majesty, Brother. So our boy gives Tern some cash to gamble with. But Tern turns it down, thinking it's not going to be that simple. Still, Darren jumps in with confidence. As our boy sits down at the gambling table and starts winning a few rounds, people notice he's got some skills. They let him win a bit at first, then plan to reel him in big time, classic scammer move. Tern gets caught in their game and keeps losing even when he has a solid hand. Our boy wonders why he doesn't just head home and wash his feet. Turn is taken aback that our boy isn't losing much. Our boy realizes they've got Turn pegged as an easy target, and it won't be long before someone starts cheating. He asks Turn if he's planning to keep playing, and Turn, confident as ever, goes in for more cash. But our boy has other ideas. He wants his brother to be the bait and lose it all. While he watches Turn play, Banshee tells him she's tracked down the guys he was after. Meanwhile, Turn continues to bleed money. Out of nowhere, our boy storms into a room at the gambling site. Everyone's shocked to see him, the young master, there. He demands to see the boss. When the boss shows up, it's clear this guy knows how to play the game. Our boy straight up asks if he's got the guts to cheat his brother. The boss seems surprised, realizing that the sucker he was referring to is actually the dude in the tiger mask at the gambling table. Our boy tells the traitor that it's Turn, the heir of the Khazar barony. The traitor starts making excuses, saying he's just running the gambling joint, isn't really involved. Banshee gets fired up, threatening him, and the traitor quickly backs down, saying he wouldn't have done this if he'd known the young master of the barony was in the mix. Our boy thinks the traitor is just trying to weasel out with words. The traitor quickly agrees to pay up. Our boy asks for 1 million loop. They don't have that kind of cash, so if he lowers it to 200,000. When they bring the money, the traitor asks if that's enough. Our boy tells him he needs one more thing, and the traitor agrees. With the cash, our boy grabs some combat gear. Banshee is pretty impressed with his plan. He ends up with a sword called Grenade, and Banshee is curious if it's that legendary sword a hero got from saving his soul from a demon. Even after the hero's fall, demons were all over it, but now it's all rusty. Our boy reassures Banshee that it's cool because he's got a plan. He then notices Banshee eyeing a necklace and decides to give it to her as a gift. She looked like she'd be totally lost without it, so he hands it over so she can chill out. Banshee is super thankful for the gift. After that, he says it's time to head home. Now she's even more fired up to whip up some tasty blood juice for him in the future. But our boy clarifies that he's not drinking that stuff right now. It's been strawberry juice all along. Out of nowhere, he suddenly remembers something. It's Turn who's wiped out all his money. The next day at the palace, Turn shakes his brother awake and he is furious that he has ditched him. He almost got sold into slavery, but luckily someone recognized him. Our boy feels bad and wonders if Gran'll helped him out. He reminds Turn that he lost the bet and now has to keep his promise. Turn hesitantly starts calling him by the title. Finally, he shouts respected King, Emperor, Majesty, brother. Our boy gets a kick out of it and tells Turn to show him some respect and do better next time. Turn storms off, vowing to show him what's up today and warns him to be ready. Meanwhile, our boy thinks the cute guy might end up being the one to take out Chris, and this is probably because of his sneaky ways. About Ash, he's actually the son of the current head of the Dark Mage family, and he is the top-ranked lord. Our boy figures he's not the real Chris, so he doesn't feel much about him. But if he wants to become a lord himself, he's gonna have to face him eventually. He's set on getting revenge for his brother, and for that, he needs to win over Belen as an ally first. He checks out his new gear, which is the Grunad sword. A while back, demons challenged this holy sword, and it's in pretty rough shape because no one could tame it. Now, our boy figures he'll give it a shot too. As he unwraps the sword, it suddenly starts glowing. He wonders if it's reacting to mana because it's an artifact meant to harness the sacred power of light. But at the end of the day, it's still just a weapon. If he can figure out what's blocking the mana, it should be easy for him. He starts hammering away at the sword, planning to work on it all night. It even feels like the sword is starting to shake a bit. A few days later, at the secret training spot, the Count asks Chris if he's ready, but instead he glances at the person next to him. As he walks over, he realizes he's seen her before. He greets her as the Black Shadow Knight Commander. She introduces herself as Mirian and mentions that it's been a while. Mirian is the daughter of the Grand Head of the Dark Mage family and the sister of his father and Marka's Langam. She's the one who helps the Grand Head with secret missions and inspections. Basically, she's the real power in the Dark Mage family, and our boy can't help but wonder why someone like her is around. Count mentions that Mirian dropped by to talk about Cox. She thinks some of the stuff he said was pretty bold. She's worried that the current head might be looking to protect Ash, which would be a hassle. Our boy jokes that the current head seems pretty laid back and questions whether he actually cares about these petty squabbles. But Marion quickly shuts that down and says he's not really interested in kids bickering. He's more curious about our boy. Our boy thinks this could be a chance to catch the current head's attention. Mirian asks if it's crazy or just plain reckless for someone who's not even a 2-star to challenge Merlin. She tells him to back off, but our boy, showing off his newly equipped sword, thanks her for her concern and insists he has a plan. Mirian questions whether that sword is Grenade. She calls him out for being wild, admitting she knew he was a reckless dude but didn't realize it was this extreme. Then she turns to Count, asking if he wasn't just bragging about how Chris guys act together. Count confirms it, and she wonders if he's really going to use the holy sword in the duel. Our boy asks if he's allowed to use the holy sword, saying it's fine as long as he wins by any means necessary. Miriam warns him that grenade is a sword even the current head couldn't manage, and adds that its holy power could end up burning him alive. Hearing this, the boy pulls out the sword to show off in front of her. Miriam raises an eyebrow and wonders if it's a fake. He tosses it to her and tells her to check it out for herself. The moment she grabs the sword, she immediately flings it aside. Miriam asks how he does that. He just shrugs and says it's a trade secret, adding that he's a genius who can swing a sword that even the current head couldn't handle. Count looks impressed too. Out of nowhere, someone chimes in and says the boy is funny and she likes him. It's Belen who just showed up. She tells him he's managed to subdue the holy sword, but then drops the bomb and says that today will be his last day.
Thanks for watching, everyone. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.